everybody, and welcome to Kids at the Library. So today I'm really excited about our project because we are going to be making our own foosball tables. So they're like mini foosball tables, and they're very easy to put together. They're things you guys probably already have around the house, so if you guys aren't able to come and pick up one of our kits, that's totally fine. You'll probably see some really familiar items in there, and the only thing that you're really going to make sure that you have is, because foosball requires a ball, what we're using are ping pong balls. So if you guys didn't come and pick up a kit and you guys are looking for a ball, a golf ball might be a good option if you guys have that at home, any sort of little toy, even a bouncy ball if you guys have one at home would probably be a nice sort of fill-in for this. But everything else you're probably going to need to get a shoebox, because that's one of the things that's not in your kit. So a shoebox is kind of ideal. However, don't panic if you don't have a shoebox, because really any box will do. You guys will see just in a moment when I flip the screen to our actual tutorial aspect. My box is like a gift box, like a little Christmas gift box, and it's about the same dimensions as a shoebox. So if you guys have a little box like that, that's great. If you guys have a shipping box that's relatively small, you can also make your own box. So if you guys just have some cardboard lying around, you guys can cut out the cardboard pieces and tape them together and make a box of your own. So this project is pretty versatile. You guys have a lot of different options for putting it together, but let's go ahead and look at our tutorial, and I'll teach you how to put one together. All right. Okay guys, so if you look at your instructions for this kit, you will see that actually the first thing you guys are going to want to do is decorate. So the reason for that is we're going to be poking some holes in this box. We're going to be cutting parts of this box out. So to decorate the bottom part of it is a nice way to get started. We're also going to be putting skewers in the middle of this, so it'll be a good idea to just kind of decorate the inside before you're putting a bunch of stuff in the middle here. What you guys are going to want to do before you decorate the sides though is you will want to at least do an outline of where you're going to make your cuts. So as you guys can see here, I have little squares cut out for my goals, so I wouldn't want to put any decorations right there. But maybe I would want to decorate behind where those squares are. So I would just take some time, decorate these sides. If you want to decorate kind of in between here too, that's totally fine. Just know that you guys are going to poke some holes in there, so don't do anything too ornate because you don't want to, you know, mess it up. But the field you're definitely going to want to decorate first. That way that's all done and settled, and you'll probably want to put a center line in there as well. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. So the next step is to prepare where you are going to put your skewers. So you guys have 4 skewers in your kit, and you guys have 10 popsicle sticks. So I have pre-decorated my popsicle sticks into 2 teams. Each team is going to have 5 players. There we go. I've got my team orange. I've got my team yellow. Okay, so knowing that I have 2 teams, I've got 4 skewers, so that means I have 5 each here. And on your back skewer, the one that's closest to the goal line, that skewer is going to have 2 players on there, and then the ones closer to midfield are going to have 3. So we won't worry too much about that, but I just wanted to let you guys know that's kind of how we're going to be configuring things, just so that you guys know for the future. So I'm quickly going to cut my goals off of here. For cutting my box, I actually used an X-Acto knife for making these little cuts. That made it much, much easier on me. Normal scissors might work, but I think that it would be safer if you guys got something a little bit sharper to make the cuts, especially if your box is thick like mine. And even a kitchen knife might be a good way to at least poke these side holes. So adults who are maybe helping your kids out with this project, this is probably the one part where you're definitely going to have to stick around and maybe help them make some cuts, because you don't want anyone to get hurt. So great, I have my goals cut out, so now my ball can go through them, and you want to make sure that it's big enough for the ball to comfortably fit through. You don't want it to be too big because you don't want it to be too easy, but it can't be too small, otherwise the ball won't go through. So there is that. And what I've done here for the next part is I've actually poked my holes in there to kind of help you guys see quickly what I've done. I've also marked on my skewers where I want my players to go. So these are just little tricks to kind of help you guys place things more easily as you're putting it together. You guys don't have to do it this way, but it's just a little thing that I discovered that made it a little bit easier. So when you guys are placing your skewers, this is the part that's going to be a little bit different for everybody because everybody's box is going to be slightly different. So what I recommend you do is actually take your players and your skewers, and I actually think it's a good idea to just quickly tape your players on there. And this doesn't have to be a perfect positioning. We can retape them in just a minute. This is just to make sure that you guys are leaving enough space for your players to move, because in foosball you have to rotate the stick that your player's on. And if you guys have your players too low on your stick, then that means that they're going to hit the ground and they're actually not going to be able to play effectively. But if they're too high, the ball is going to go right underneath of them. So as you can see, I'm not doing a very neat job of taping my players on there, but it's going to get the job done. And I will do a better job once I make my final product here. You guys can definitely use glue for your final product as well. The only thing about glue is it takes a lot of time, and because you are gluing a flat surface to a round surface, that might not work the best. So I would probably recommend tape. I'm just quickly using some Scotch tape for this part. I might actually recommend using a thicker tape for your final product, but the Scotch tape is great just to get you started. So what I mean by putting things on the top edge is you can put it here just on the top edge of your box, and then you can kind of swing your players a little bit, and this is going to let you know how far to space your skewers, and then you can kind of gauge how far down they need to go later on. So if I have my 3 players there, I'm going to put my 2 players in there as well. Player 1 here. And another thing you guys are going to want to think about is in foosball, your players are a little bit staggered. So that means that they're not directly behind one another. They're actually in the middle. They're like between the two. So as you can see, I've done that here. And these are about where I put my holes and the sides. And so if I'm swinging these guys about where they are, so I might need to make some adjustments about where to go, because they're kind of catching a little bit. So this is what I mean, just to be able to figure out how well they move together. But it looks like the spacing itself is fine as far as like where the skewers are. It's just I need to replace my players a little bit. So once you've done that, you can actually remove the tape, And again, this is just some practice tape, so I don't even need to save it. I'm just gonna put it over here because I don't need it. Okay, so once you've marked where on the box your holes are going to be, you can start putting your skewers in there. You can see I have a little mark here. This mark was to let me know about where the center of my box was, because I don't want my skewers to be uneven as far as like where the center line is concerned. So that's what that little mark is on the side. And I'm just going to go ahead and put my skewers through. And I will tell you guys a little trick that I learned while I was putting this together as a practice run, was that when I was wanting to line up where my skewers were, as I was putting holes on both sides, because I wanted it to be even, I actually put a little mark on the tip of my skewer, and I poked it against the wall of the box, and that left a tiny little dot on there, so I knew where like directly across was, so that's where I could make my line. So just another little tip for you guys to make it slightly easier for you. So I will show you guys what I mean when I am talking about putting the marker on the tip of my skewer. So I'm just going to take this Sharpie, and I'm just going to a little tiny black dot. I wanted to show you guys exactly how I did this. So I poked a hole on this side, and then I poked it through, and then I made sure that it was even. And then I just kind of pressed the mark in, and it's the tiniest little mark. I don't even know if you guys can see it, but the important thing is that I can see it, and so I know where to put my mark. So again, this is where an adult is going to be very important to be part of this project, because you guys will need to be using something very sharp to make a hole in the side. So I am using an X-Acto knife. A box cutter is probably something that you guys have at home that has a little sharp point to it. So I would just ask your parents to please help you with this part, because I really don't want anyone to get hurt. But all you guys are going to do is you're going to make a little mark, and then you're just going to kind of twist the blade a little bit. And what you're doing is you're making a hole big enough for your skewer to go through. And once you have your hole, you can kind of dust off the side. Make sure that your knife is put away safely, because we want to make sure that no one gets hurt with that. And then you can, using the point side of your skewer, you can put it through that hole, and you can just kind of wiggle your skewer around a little bit, so that way you know your skewer can go back and forth and twist around, because you don't want it to be too tight, otherwise you guys aren't going to be able to play. So this is what it's going to look like once you guys have your skewers in there. And so go ahead, and once you have your skewers in there, give them a twist, and try pulling them back and forth, because with foosball, that's something that you have to do. And you might find, like I'm finding, that this hole is a little tight, and so I might actually want to take my X-Acto knife again, get your adult to help, and then make the hole just a little bit bigger. So there's a little bit of trial and error with this project, but it's going to be fun, so don't fret too much. It's worth the work. Okay, perfect. That's much smoother. So now that I have my skewers in there, I would like to take this time to tape my players in. So now is when I'm going to be a little bit more particular about how my players are taped in there. Okay guys, so once you have everybody taped in, then you should be able to move them around. So I would do a couple of practice ones, practice rotations, and if you guys need to, you guys, if they're kind of wobbly, you guys can take some time and reinforce the tape. You basically want them to just stay pretty darn still. So that's why I recommend putting tape on the front and the bottom. I would actually recommend potentially like crisscrossing. Even if you guys have like rubber bands, if you guys want them to be super duper secure, you guys could even put some rubber bands over them if you want. It's kind of up to you, but you guys can definitely use tape. You're just gonna need to use a little bit of it. And then once you guys do some practice rounds and make sure that your guys or girls are staying up straight, then what you guys can do is you guys can start playing. So doing some practice rounds. Mine are kind of wobbling around a little bit, so I'll take some time and tape them on a little bit more securely, so that way they're not flopping around. But then once they're all secure, they should rotate really nicely. My back row here is probably the best, so I'm gonna flip these guys forward and show you how the back row is doing. Go. Great. Okay, so this row is probably my best row to show you as an example. And then once everybody is moving kind of like my back row, you can just throw in this ball and then you can start kicking it around. So as you guys can see, my rows are kind of flopping around a little bit. So definitely make sure that the step that you take the most time with is taping on your players. And so I wanted to show you guys this tutorial fairly quickly, so I'm not going to bore you with watching me tape over and over again, but I will go ahead and show you a clip of me playing at the very end of this video once I have them all taped on and ready to go and very playable. So go ahead and work on this, and then once you guys have it all done, you can go ahead and start playing.